Hi there, Scorpio. Thank you for joining me for your year 2015 forecast. Now, over the last couple of years, Saturn has been very important in your situation because it's been making its way through your sign. Now, Saturn is the planet of structure, but it's also known as the hard taskmaster of the zodiac. And some people even call it the Grim Reaper. And it tends to rip out of our situation anything which is non-essential. And sometimes we don't get too much of a choice in the process. So if you have been up against it in 2013 and 14, in some way in your situation, it wouldn't really be a surprise. But the wonderful news for you is that apart from 3 months, it does move into a new home in 2015. And that process actually began just at the end of last year. So Saturn relocates, and you may let out a huge sigh of relief. But remember, Saturn is essentially helping us. It doesn't seem like it at the time. And if you think back over that last couple of years, you've probably simplified your life in quite a few facets. Some of the people that used to be around that weren't that relevant to you may no longer be in touch. Maybe that was your choice, maybe it came from them. And some of your interests may have really come down to what's truly essential. You may have become much more efficient in the way you lead your life. And if this is the case, you're really ready for the next adventure that Saturn is going to lay down for you. And it begins right at the start of this new year. But Saturn is a planet which moves back and forwards. And on June the 15th, it is going to switch backwards into Scorpio again for 3 months and will emerge in the middle of September. So it's just to let you know that you're not quite at the end of its transit, and there could be still some areas that need tightening up, where you need to batten down the hatches and be very clear about what's really important for you to focus on. But the next new stage, with Saturn moving through most of this year the sign of Sagittarius, is going to see it looking at your values. What do you really believe in? We all have different values. Some people are very passionate about them, sometimes in a religious sense, as we see in the world at large. Sometimes people are passionate about the things they believe in terms of their sports team that they follow, or particular principles. And yours are definitely going to come under scrutiny in the next 2.5 years. And it's also possible that your financial situation may come under that kind of scrutiny too. So it's just cautioning you that this is possible. But what Saturn will do is ask you to really focus your thinking and your spending even on the things that are truly relevant. So if you have had a tendency in the past to splash the cash occasionally, perhaps for a little bit of retail therapy, on things which are not truly vital, you may find yourself altering during the next 30 months and becoming much more mindful of your resources. This doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. It actually can be very, very positive. But there may be times when it seems that there is less to go round, which of course needs you to readjust to. But at the very start of this year, there is also some other very important influences. And one of them affects your co-ruler of Pluto. The other affects your other co-ruler of Mars. So let's deal with Pluto first. Pluto is the planet which is very much to do with that very deep side of your nature, sometimes that secretive side of your nature, sometimes that very blunt side of your nature. And Pluto is a planet which is very much to do with motives, and it's to do with power and control. And over the last 7 years, it's been influenced in the part of your scope to do with your ideas. And in some ways, it's probably been marvellous. It's helped you to really shake up your thinking. And maybe you've become very persuasive about particular strands in your situation and have done very well at speaking out more openly. But at the start of this year, it does move back into a rather jolting square, which can put you on edge in terms of your nervous system, with the planet of uncertainty and unpredictability of Uranus. And this is going to go on for 5 months. Unfortunately, this aspect is also going to show up in the last 2 months of the year as well. Just be prepared for the fact that at times, life, situations, people, demands may stress you out a little bit. And the best way to deal with this is to make sure that you prioritise on what's really important to you. But it's possible that other people will still make demands upon you. And if you're someone who's very much a free spirit, that may be difficult, especially if you like your own space and at times like to cocoon yourself away in that privacy, which can be very important to you to help you feel secure. At times it may be more difficult to do this. And yet Mars, the power planet, your other co-ruler, is actually forging a really upbeat opposition to Jupiter as this year begins, which could get you thinking about where you live and how you live there. And it's also possible you might start to think about moving to somewhere bigger and better, or making some improvements to where you live. But if that's the case, you must do your costings very carefully because of the role Saturn is going to bring to your situation. But a much sweeter link at the start of this year is between Venus and Mercury, which is influencing your word power and also your thinking, and it could lead to a much warmer relationship with someone in your immediate vicinity. You can find one neighbour is just the perfect person to chime with. And if you're lucky enough to have good family life, it's possible that there can be one sibling that you see a lot more of this year in a much more positive way. But as the year progresses, I do feel January in particular can see you perhaps wanting to spend quite a lot of time just thinking about what you want, mulling over things. You may keep the world a little bit at a distance during that period. But by March, there is a stunning solar eclipse, and that occurs in the part of your scope that is to do with joys. If you have children or grandchildren, or you're a creative Scorpio, the next 6 months can be very, very exciting for you. But they ask you, the energies from above, to think about untapped qualities you have, or any hidden abilities, or ones that have lain dormant for some time. You need to tune into these on the back of the lunar eclipse, which occurs on the 4th of April. Now, in the first pretty well 6 or 7 months of this year, Jupiter continues to make its way through the part of your scope to do with your career. And if you are wanting to raise your head above the parapet from time to time, be more outspoken and have your say and show a greater sense of confidence in a fast-moving professional environment, this can be a very good influence for you. But just be conscious that by the time you get to the change which occurs in the middle of June, when Saturn moves back into your sign, it isn't necessarily always going to be good for you to be in the limelight. And there may be part of you that yearns for a more sociable type of situation too. And you start to get it once Jupiter moves into Sagittarius, into Virgo, I beg your pardon, which occurs on the 11th of August. Now, on the whole, this can be wonderful for the following 12 months. It can see you much more upbeat, much more outgoing. But in September, it does go opposite Neptune, and that can lead to some confusion. Jupiter is also in its detriment in Virgo. After all, it is the planet of growth, but Virgo is a bit of a picky, sometimes critical influence, and can make Jupiter less confident, less exuberant. So just be conscious of that in that first month in September, with another 2 eclipses occurring, you may find yourself not quite trusting certain situations or people, even if on the face of it they seem to be absolutely what you need. But you know, you'd actually be right to be a little bit doubtful. And it won't be until the lunar eclipse occurs later that month, virtually at the end of September, in your sector of relating, that you can start to make sense of things. And then in October, well, it's just an absolutely knockout month for you, when Jupiter forges a brilliant link with Pluto, and you can find yourself connecting with one person or a group of people like never before. And there's a real sense of unity around this, a feeling that you can go from strength to strength and lay down some long-term plans. But in the last couple of months of the year, we do have a square between Saturn back into your sector of cash and also Neptune. And if there is somebody that you're strongly attracted to towards the end of 2015, you need to be very sure that their values match up to yours, or you could find yourself in the vicinity of some kind of trickster, not necessarily in a deliberate way to deceive you, but more because they're not very good for you. And something that appears to be a potential love prospect may actually be something which is not truly going to be right for you. And then, as Pluto and also Uranus square up again towards the end of the year, there can be a certain amount of stress. This time I think more likely over your finances, which are going to require you to be much more disciplined all through this year. But you can use Saturn working through your second solar house to be much more on the ball when it comes to what you're eating, and especially more sugary foods. Of course, we've read a lot over the last 20 years about how salt and also saturated fats are really bad for us. Now there's a lot of evidence to suggest that's not the case, as long as it's sea salt and not too much saturated fats. But it's sugar that's really the enemy of our beings and our bodies. So it would be a good thing at times this year to be much more disciplined about the amount of goodies that you gorge on. We all like them. They all give us a short-term thrill. But if it's a regular thing for you, Saturn's really going to be asking you to tighten up this area of your situation too. And it can also make you, in some ways, just a little bit less tuned into the more sexual side of your nature, because you're going to be much more wanting a connection at an intellectual level with someone. It's not just if you fancy someone. So Saturn can work in quite a few mysterious ways all through this year. But remember, the last half of this year could turn out to be unexpectedly sociable for you. You just need to choose your companions carefully. Thank you for joining me. Good luck and goodbye for now.